All right, welcome back into a live edition of the Six Rings and Football Things podcast here on WEEI and for Odyssey Sports, presented by FanDuel. We are here to react, myself, Mike Kadlick, and Andy Jumbo Hart, reacting to the first day of NFL free agency. The new league year unofficially opened today at noon with legal tampering beginning and negotiations going on between agents and players who aren't represented and teams and all the good stuff like that. And the Patriots, who apparently said they were going to burn cash, have yet to burn cash so far. So what we're going to do is react to all of the moves, really the two, maybe three moves the Patriots have made today, made over the weekend, and then go around the league and see what else we think is going to happen next. So, Andy, first and foremost, actually, since I don't believe we have you yet on the record on the Six Rings and Football Things feed on this one, Mac Jones was traded on Sunday to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a sixth-round pick. Thoughts on the move? Did they miss out on potentially getting anything more for him? What do you think of the return? What do you think of ultimately the whole thing and how the Mac Jones era ended in New England?
So it had to happen. He had to go. It was not going to work here. And they actually got a little more than I expected. I don't know if I said it with you, but my prediction was you were going to have to send Mac and a seventh to get a sixth.
Yep.
And you sent Mac and got a sixth. So I think that was about all you were going to get. The dude is broken. He's a backup quarterback right now with hopefully upside, but everything he went through the last 2 years broke him, broke his value, broke Bill Belichick, broke the Patriots, broke it. Everything was broken after what went on. So I think we all expected it. I know Tom Curran kept saying they should keep him and he still had value. That made no sense to me. I'm not saying he's like a cancer, quote unquote, in the clubhouse, but I just don't know how you could keep that guy around. I just don't know, to what end? My new phrase, to what end would you keep him around? Like, right. He's going to be a free agent after the year. You're going to let him go then. So trade him now, start fresh, get your rookie in here, and not coincidentally, we see the social media video today of Bailey Zappi working out with Kendrick Bourne and Tyquan Thornton and screwing around in the gym. Like, I think he can still be here. You want to talk about a value, a cheap quarterback that knows, the organization and has been here for a little bit. You can keep him around with a rookie and with a veteran. Like Mac had to go and you got a 6th-round pick for him. So,
I don't know if you ever heard Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, they get one back, pick 192 in this year's draft. And
it's a little high.
It is a little high. I'm with you as far as is he going to be a complete cancer in the room? Probably not. And I forget if me and you had talked about this before, but I called in yesterday with Fitzy and Lyons on WEEI and was talking about, do I expect Mac to be in the room next year and Drake May and being like, oh, hey, I used to be you, and now look at me. It might just happen to you, so look out. This place is no, I don't think he's going to be that much of a cancer in somebody's ear. But there's no place for him in the room. There's no place for him in the locker room. If, again, you're going to do this plan that Mass Live keeps talking about where you're bringing a veteran quarterback and you trade for one at number 3, or you draft one at number 3, rather, there's just no place for Mac. If he's standing there, he's not going to be the backup. He's not – there's no future plan for him. He's just kind of there in the room. So it seems like a waste of space. It seems like a waste of a roster spot. And so, I think it had to happen, and I think they had to just cut bait with what they did. They had to cut bait, and they had to get what they can get with the 6th-round pick. And if people think they could have got something else later, I mean, so what? You just got to kind of, cut loose and cut your losses and go for it. And so I think they made the right decision. As far as him being in Jacksonville, I think that's a decent spot for him. Learn behind Trevor Lawrence, reset your mentals. You don't have to start right away unless, of course, Trevor Lawrence gets injured. And then you reset and go to the open market next year and see what you can get. So that's the deal with Mac Jones. I've said my piece on it twice here now on the Six Rings feed. So that's just kind of that. You're going to.
One last little bit that somebody actually brought up on Twitter that I hadn't really thought of, but I agreed with. It may also help him to be with a quote-unquote nice coach in Doug Peterson, like a player-friendly coach, a coach who talks about getting ice cream, right? And a quarterback. I don't discount that, but just a guy who's been there, done that in terms of the quarterback. So I think that might be a soft landing spot. And there's really no pressure in that Trevor Lawrence doesn't really miss time. He hasn't really missed time in his career going back to college, anything. So it's a good spot for him to reset. If he gets in, he gets in. and, there'll be a friendly crowd and friendly coach and friendly everything because he could probably use a little bit of a mental rebuild as well as a physical rebuild. So, yeah, but let's talk about the Patriots. Screw Mac.
And Mac does like ice cream. I know he's talked about that plenty of times around here before. So that would be a good little pairing with. Yeah, exactly. That's fair.
Who doesn't?
All right, you're right. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it because free agency opened today. But even before that, they made 2 signings, 2 of their own. Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne, the 2 guys on the offense that I think deserve to be re-signed. Them 2, and then obviously Mike Onwenu, which is still TBD. They haven't really burned the cash we've talked about. They haven't made that splash, but they did retain 2 of their own in Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne. Both guys come back on 3-year deals. Both guys come back at under market value, I would say, because I saw the guy, I think Cody Parkinson is his name, the tight end from Seattle that went to the Rams. He signed for like $300,000 less a season than Hunter Henry. Like, to me, that's stealing if you get Henry for that much, only that much more money over a guy like Cody Parkinson. So they bring him back. Captain, obviously leader in the locker room last season. And then they re-signed Kendrick Bourne last night as well to a 3-year deal, coming off a torn ACL. A guy who's not going to be your 1, obviously, maybe not even your 2. But a guy who is, again, good in the room, high-quality leader, just like Henry. And I saw, our friend Mike Giardi talking about, why do so many people want to run this back with all these people last season? Like, I get they were 4-13 last year, but if there's 2 people on this offense that you want to bring back from last year, it's unquestionably Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne.
So, Mike's been a little cranky lately on the Twitter machine. Very good barb at Ian Rappaport that I'm sure everybody saw when he said no shit when the Patriots were looking into dealing him, moving on, going their separate ways. So the Hunter Henry thing, I think you had to re-sign him, and I think it's clear he wanted to re-sign here. He could have got more money on the open market. You got him at a reduction of his previous contract. To me, you got him at below market value. He's not great. He isn't. He's a good tight end, good, solid, reliable, productive tight end. And if you think he's more than that, that's your fault. But I think they took advantage of him a little bit. Or I shouldn't say took advantage. They took advantage of a situation where he probably seemingly wanted to be here. Because I was stunned that I thought it would be 3 years, $40 million. And, some of it cuttable at the end. But to get him at 3 years, $30 million, you don't see too many guys stay in the same spot who are okay, productive, and take a pay cut. He's basically taking a pay cut for the next 3 years from what he made the last 3 years. So it's good for the team. It's good for whoever the quarterback is next fall, whether that's the number 3 pick, whether that's Jacoby Brissett. That's a good guy to have in your huddle and have in your offense. Kendrick Bourne, I like him. I think you're probably going to be in the second half of the season before you really can see any hope of him contributing. And I know he's talking about being ready for camp and all that. We've just seen it before. Even if you're on the field, even if you're one of the 5 receivers and you make opening day roster and you're playing, you're not going to be as good as you'll be November, December, later in the year. But just the bigger picture question, because I agree with you. I would have re-signed both these guys. Now, I think Onwenu, you could argue, is the most important of them up there with Henry.
He's going to make so much money, Andy. He is going to make so much money. Have you seen the guard money?
People that were mocking me when I said it was going to go $22.5 million, they can go F themselves. And they are going to get a go F themselves when he signs his deal wherever it is. Because
I was watching you guys on NBC, and you said like the $20 million number, and Phil looked at you. He's like, "Where are you getting that number?" And you're like, "It's what I'm hearing." And here we go. Guards are making $20 freaking million a year right now.
You got these know-it-all reporters that think only if they've heard it is it true, and if they haven't heard it, it's not true. But we'll see where his contract goes, because a guy who is a true guard just got $20 million a year. And if I'm Mike Onwenu, I'm arguing I'm a true guard like him, but I'm also a tackle like them. So bump that up a little bit here.
Bingo.
So, I said to you, I wouldn't want to pay $4 and $90 or $5 and $110, and I still don't. I don't think I would go that high for him. But the reality isn't that those guys aren't good enough. It's that Hunter Henry is a complementary offensive weapon. The problem is when he might be your best offensive weapon.
Sure.
Just like you said, Kendrick Bourne, number 3 receiver. Okay, we might have something here. Oh, excuse me. Did you say he's my number 1 receiver? Oh, we suck. And that's the problem. It's not about those guys not being good enough. It's about the other players not being good enough. The Devontae Parkers, who you are cut, get the hell out of here. I'm going to say that's one of the worst moves we've had in recent year. The guy was a douche.
The
He was
extension.
insecure about DeAndre Hopkins, and so you
Yep.
extended him. What a dumbass. It was, as I tweeted, it was dumb at the time, and now in hindsight, it seems even dumber by Bill Belichick. That would add that to the pile of his piss-poor decisions over the last couple of years. But I have no problem keeping good players. It's they have to add good players or better players around them. A Calvin Ridley, a T. Hig, whoever you want to get involved in.
Right.
A.D. Mitchell, if you think he's going to be a stud rookie. Like, I'm sorry, but the ones and the twos need to be better at a lot of spots. And that's not Kendrick Bourne's fault. He is who he is. Like, don't ask him to be what he's not. Just ask him to be what you're paying him to be. And his contract was kind of in line with what he's been making, basically. Mm-hmm. I don't know that you got a discount or that he made money. I think it's kind of in line with who he is, what he makes in a world where wide receiver contracts are blowing up. But yeah, that crankiness from Giardi, like, yeah, are we going to cut Ramondre Stevenson? He was on the team last year too.
Yeah, right.
Right. Like, no, some of those players are good. If you put a good quarterback and a good number one receiver and a good second tight end and a good left tackle around those guys that you're bringing back, my guess is your offense is going to be better, and and those guys will look better by extension. So I understand the distaste. I think Adam Jones is probably going to hammer that point home on our afternoon show on our station. And it's low hanging fruit. I would too. It gets the masses fired up, and it's, from the Felger playbook, get everybody fired up. But if you look a little deeper, you can have good players on a bad team.
Right. And I'm with you. And I look at it in that sort of in that lens too, right? Where when we're going to get to like, who's still available in the splashes that they haven't made yet. And, they've said they're going to burn this cash. They have the most cap space in the NFL. And they really haven't made that big move, but no team has really made that big move yet. So like, admittedly, and I'm a little disappointed with the fact that they've only signed Antonio Gibson, but no team has really made that big of a move that I would expected the Patriots to make.
Oh, they could have signed Kirk Cousins.
Okay, but that's not really what I expected them to do. Like, we didn't expect them to make that move.
I give the Falcons credit. The Falcons said, F it, we're going for it. We have offensive talent. We're gonna play crazy money. I don't love the contract for Kirk Cousins because I don't love the player, but give them credit. Or the Giants trading for Brian Burns and handing him $150 million, or Chris Jones re-signing with the Chiefs for
So I guess once Jacoby
you gave a guy $11 million to play backup running back. That's not a big move.
So once Jacoby Brissett and Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd and Noah Fant and all those guys start to go off the board and they're still not coming to the Patriots, then I'm going to be like, okay, this is absolutely ridiculous and you completely botched this thing again. But until they start missing on, those core players that I guess, like I said, we're expected them to, take a chance at and go for a shot at, then I'm still going to kind of sit here and shut up and wait while still saying, okay, let's get this thing moving. Let's have a little bit of urgency. Like, don't wait for the market to come to you. Go set the market because you have the money to set said market. So we'll get into those in a second. But, finally, we talked about Parker. But, the one thing on that is he does carry a cap hit of $6.3 million next season. Again, I think this was a cut bait move to, frankly, we talked about being a cancer in the locker room, getting a cancer out of the locker room. Like that guy, and, it seemed like he had some mutual respect between the other guys in the receiver room, but sometimes he was just like, lazy, grumpy, didn't take accountability. Like after that Raiders game when he said that, it didn't hit him in the fingertips when it did, like stuff like that was just like, the complete opposite of the Patriot way we talk about around here. And, does the Patriot way matter when you go 4-13? Not really. But, when guys like that are around, the room was too crowded. If you're trying to go get Calvin Ridley, if you're trying to go get guys in the draft, like that was the one that made the most sense to, don't even try and daggle him on the trade market, cut bait, eat your $6 million and move forward.
Yeah. I never understood Devontae Parker. I really, on the field, off the field, he didn't seem to fit. You're right. Yeah. No accountability. As I said, kind of a sensy little biznitch, whether it was the DeAndre Hopkins thing or the Mike Giardi stunk thing.
Yeah.
Like, I never got that bringing him here in the first place. Yeah, I guess that was a Matt Patricia trade that brought to Bill thing.
Sure.
Well, there's a reason both you guys they're both out of football right now, right? They're out of football.
Patricia.
He was with Philly and then he left.
Is
right?
he still with Philly or no?
I don't think
Did they
so.
get rid of him? Yeah, you might be right.
So.
They might have cut bait.
But the Parker thing, that's a bad decision because you're right. Like Jonnu Smith seemed like a nice fellow when he was here.
Sure.
He was just an on-field bust.
Same with
like
Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar, nice guy, just not a great football player.
Whereas Parker didn't seem like a good guy, didn't seem like accountable, was not good on the field, didn't bring anything to the field or to the locker room that was in any way positive. So, yeah, that was a massive swing and a miss multiple times by Bill Belichick.
Yep, I'm with you. So the one signing they did make, and you just alluded to it with the $11 million, was the signing of Antonio Gibson. The Patriots made a signing. They burnt some cash, baby. So contract details. This is from Mike Reese of ESPN. Signed for 3 years, $11 million, or 11.25 million, maximum value of 17 million. A lot of it is incentive based and roster bonus based and things like that. And the guarantees are as follows. 2024, he's only guaranteed 1.125 million. 2025, less than 2 million is guaranteed. So it kind of feels like one of those old Patriots contracts where it's all, low guaranteed money, workout bonuses, roster bonuses, incentives. And look, I get that that's how a lot of these contracts are, set up now. And you see the huge numbers when the agents send them to, your Schefters and your Rappaports. And it's like, oh my God, Baker Mayfield's making $150 million. Like, not really, kind of. But at the same time, the Patriots have continued to do this. And I wonder if, again, looking at the Reese outlined it on Twitter, base, roster bonus, workout bonuses, incentives, like they're not paying them a lot of money at all. And I wonder if that's deterring people on the market. And if they're sticking to that, that type of structure in a contract that Bill Belichick used to do. And, similar front office, learning the ways. I know it's only one contract and we haven't seen it all, play out yet, but that's my initial thought on Gibson off the field. On the field, solid football player, solid number 2 running back, a guy that's going to be able to spell Ramondre Stevenson, a guy that's going to be able to help in the passing game. They haven't really had that passing down back around here lately. Guy played wide receiver in college at Memphis. So, that's my quick thought on him as a player. But what do you make of the move? And obviously, stupid question, but is it enough?
It's not enough. I don't hate the move, and I think the way you painted it, this is an old school move.
Yeah.
These aren't the old school Patriots, though. This is an old school contract and an old school talent that I think this guy joining Tom Brady and Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski would have been awesome. I would have been excited. I'd be like, oh, that's a good fit with Stevenson. This is passing down back. Oh, these guys always have great success in New England, blah, 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 blah. Except that ain't what he's joining. Right. I mean, you can make a strong argument that your 2 best players in the passing game are in the backfield, and your 3 best players are your tight end and your 2 running backs, right? Like they both, all 3 of those guys have track records of success in an NFL where 140 catch wide receivers and 1,500 yard seasons are the way you do business now. And I know it's not done. Calvin Amstel 54 says Ridley time unless he signed while we're talking. And I'll be honest, I'm not really all that excited about Calvin Ridley. I think he's a good, not great player.
I've turned myself into being excited for Calvin Ridley because of the way the market went.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the bummer here.
Calvin Ridley is that couple-week-old box of Oreos in your cupboard when you're really hungry and you're not sure they're good for you. You're not even sure they're still fresh, but you're really freaking hungry and you're just devouring those Oreos. And then you're like, I feel bad about myself later.
They chew a little bit too much, but it's like, oh, I guess it still has the taste, I guess.
Yes.
But can this Oreo get off press coverage like he used to at Alabama?
So here's where I'm going to contradict. Right. Here's where I contradict myself is that I'm kind of resigned to drafting a receiver unless they're going to make a trade. And I see Mario Salinas said trade for T. Higgins. So T. Higgins wants a trade. I've been on that train.
That's what I want to get to. Yeah.
If I can get, by the way, and I think I said this before we started actually recording, like the Brian Burns trade was a 2 and a 5 for Brian Burns, an elite edge player who they gave $150 million to. If I can get a trade like that for T. Higgins, I know I'm going to have to pay him. I know I'm going to have to give him $100 and whatever million. But if I can do that for a 2 and something else, if I can give you 34 and let's just say similar trade to that, I'll give you 34 and next year's number 5. Yeah. 5th round pick. I'd do that in a heartbeat. Now I add my quarterback at 3. I re-signed already Hunter Henry and Kendrick. Like, I feel like I'm putting together a nice, that makes Bourne and Henry and Gibson all better. Ramondre all better.
Yep.
But just handing Calvin Ridley $23 million a year, $24 million a year, wherever that's going to go. As somebody said to me last night when I was sort of pushing back on Ridley, they were like, yeah, real number 1 receivers don't reach free agency. Real number 1 receivers are either drafted or they're traded for and then signed. The A.J. Browns, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hills, Stephon Diggses of the world. So the fact that Ridley's on the open market in the way the NFL works kind of tells you that he's not a number 1 receiver. He just isn't. You're going to make him that. You're going to pay him that. You're going to expect him to be that.
And so going into today with the Patriots being on the wide receiver market, and the news around the league right now is that they are in and interested in Calvin Ridley. That's from Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, and then T. Higgins requests a trade, right? And so they need a wide receiver. There's no question about it. Like, you can't go into you look at these, what we're talking about with Giardi, right, and running it back. Like, if you go right now and don't make a move, you're running it back from last year, and it's clearly not enough. We saw it on the field for the last 2 seasons. You need I'm all in on a T. Higgins trade, Andy. I think it is the move you need to make with your rookie quarterback. Like, yeah, Calvin Ridley is all well and good, but it's the move that, like we just said, it was sort of backed into them because Higgins went back to Cincy, and because Pittman went back to Indy, and because Mike Evans went back to Tampa. The market sort of created around itself, and it was like, oh, Calvin Ridley's here. Okay, I guess we'll go get him. But now that T. Higgins is effectively available again, trade for him on that franchise tag and go get him. I think it's easy. Like, and you might have to overpay for it, but that's okay. Like, you need to pay for good players in this league, and you mentioned it with Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs. Those guys were traded for. They were traded for, and they made the young quarterback around them better. And that's what you're going to have to do with the guy here. So you can't just sit and wait on wide receivers in this league. I see in the chat, Higgins isn't a number 1. He hasn't had the opportunity to be a number 1. He is a prototypical X, and he is a guy who make him a 1 and put better guys around him like Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne. And then you're going to look, I don't want to say you're going to sit here and cook with gas on offense, but you're going to put your rookie quarterback in a much, much, much better place if you go get T. Higgins in this offense.
So Danny Stanford brings up a good point that you just kind of touched on. I think Ridley can be the bridge, quote unquote, guy if they draft someone at 34. And that is a part of this analysis. Like, if you, like, I'm in love with, as someone else is as well, I'm in love with Mitchell out of Texas. And if you sign Calvin Ridley, and let's just say you take A.D. Mitchell with the 34th pick, do you really care who you're paying what? Like, yeah, you're paying Ridley 20-something million a year. You're not paying that much to Mitchell. And maybe by next year, Mitchell's your number 1 receiver. Do you really care? No, you have a good offense. Right. You have a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3. And by the way, you're not paying your quarterback position that much money either. So you can afford right now, if you do this properly, you can afford to overpay people, because then down the road, A.D. Mitchell in 3 years signs an extension and you get rid of Calvin Ridley. And then down the road, you pick up the 5th-year option on Jaden Daniels and give Jaden Daniels a $350 million contract. So if you look at it like that, there is an argument to be made that it's okay to kind of grossly overpay Calvin Ridley right now as part of a overlapping plan, staggered plan of finances, because they have the money. They have to spend it on somebody. They have to spend it. Now, maybe we keep getting Onwenu references. I don't know. No one's really said, do they want to sign Onwenu for $22.5 million a year? Like,
Right.
if you're a Patriots fan, if you're in the chat right now, answer this question. Mike Onwenu signs a 5-year, $110 million contract. Are you excited? I'm waiting for answers.
What's
Come
110 divided by 5?
That's $22 million a year.
Okay.
And it's actually below the 22.5 I heard. So it would actually be 5 and
Yeah.
112 or 113. No one's
Do
excited.
you
Come
want
on.
that, Andy? Do you think they should
No.
do that?
No.
Too much?
I can't, that's too much.
Yeah.
Now, we got a couple no's. Justin Seamus, Digital Whizzlers, no. We got Sander Rubbins Racins. You pay Onwenu, sure.
Too much.
Coming.
Yes. It's volatile. It's definitely volatile.
I learned a lesson. Don't ask a specific question unless you want the answers. 100% yes, says Joe D _V2. Yes, if he's a right tackle. He is a right tackle. He plays right tackle for you. He played right tackle last year. But using Giardi's argument, he played right tackle and your line wasn't very good. Again, I don't hold him accountable for that. But he was part of an offensive line that wasn't that good. The whole year he was part of a line that wasn't that good. Sometimes at guard, later at tackle. But also, you have to pay somebody. I'd be more excited. I was kind of thinking they would trade for Brian Burns. Like, I was hoping they would make a trade for one of those big-time defensive players and be like Mayo's stamp, like, we're a defensive team, damn it. I'm defensive coach. That's how,
right.
And I don't rule out something like that happening, and maybe they sign a safety. Maybe they go get Justin Simmons or Poyer or something, in that world. But
see, that's the thing. Look, if they go sign Justin Simmons right now, obviously it's a good move. It's objectively a good move for their defense. But I'm so zoned out and don't really care about the defense right now because of how bad the offense has been. That any move they make on defense is going to remind me of Belichick over the last 5 years. It's great, you're making the defense better, but your offense still freaking stinks. And so you need to make the splash on offense. And, I've sort of been workshopping this, and I'm just going to blurt it out here and see if it sticks and see what you think about Calvin Ridley. Because, look, on one hand, I think it's the move that they have to make because he's the only top wide receiver on the market. But on the other hand, does it kind of remind you of Juju last year at all? A guy who has been hurt, was down and out a little bit, older side, 29. You expect more from him, coming off a fringe 1,000-yard season, and then you bring him in at the age of 29, 30, and nothing really happens like you want it to.
I think he's healthier, and I think he's younger. And I think younger,
less
wear
tread
and
on the
tear.
tires. Yeah, right. Because he had the whole year off, sure.
Right. So, do I think he'd be better than Juju? Yes. Do I think he'd be Juju? It doesn't excite me. I guess the way I'm looking for splash, and I know that's not right. I mean, you don't want to splash. As they showed us, I think, in one of the Dynasty episodes, the old Scott Pioli, we're not collecting talent, we're building a team and all of that. You don't have to necessarily splash. I also think this team could use a splash. I don't know if Robert and Jonathan Kraft are thinking about this. And by the way, the comments are coming in way faster than I can keep up with them and also talk at the same time.
We're rolling. We got we have 3,300 people watching this right now. So do it up.
Really?
Yeah, 3,300 eyes according to Restream. Yeah.
No, nut. That would be. You want to try that again?
What?
6,600 eyes.
Sets of eyes. Good one. You have you just have them loaded up, huh? That's crazy.
Yep,
That just
you always got to be ready.
Like that. Jesus.
So for example, you mentioned it, the Gibson move.
Mm-hmm.
I solid. Is it Saquon Barkley? No, it isn't. It is not Saquon Barkley. He goes to the Eagles. And that's fine. I think this team needs somebody. Do you think fans are running out to get a Gibson jersey?
I already ordered mine. I got 3 on the way.
Which means he's gonna suck because that'll just replace your Juju and Gesicki jersey from last year.
I'm just gonna tape over Gesicki on the back of my jersey and exactly.
But and I know, theoretically, I guess you take a quarterback with the number 3 pick. that's the star of your offseason. That's the splash page on your pro shop, like order your Jaden Daniels jersey or your Drake May jersey. And I agree with Julian Ramirez. Gibson's a solid pickup. This team is picking third in the draft. It needs more than solid pickups. Solid pickups join decent teams. Solid pickups join playoff teams that are trying to move further in the postseason. This team needs more than solid pickups right now. I don't know why I'm getting angry.
I mean, you should get angry. Why not? They haven't done anything yet. And so let's.
Yeah, but free agency's only been open for like 6 hours.
And so that's why, but earlier I tried to calm you down, and you were like, "No, they need to make moves." Like
the bulk of the best talent goes in the first 12 hours of free agency. Like that's how free agency. And I know it hasn't even started yet, but these deals are getting agreed to. So
yeah, did you see there was already a flip? The kicker from Denver, Will Lutz, was going to go to Jacksonville, and then he flipped and said, "Never mind, I'm going back to Denver."
Oh, really? Yeah. See, like.
Can't ink anything yet. Antonio Gibbs could flip if he wanted.
I would get the hell out of here. He thought there was going to be more activity. He thought he was joining a rebuilt offense.
All right, so I want to get your thoughts on Jacoby Brissett because he is not here yet. According to The Athletic, Chad Graff, he says that Jacoby Brissett or the Patriots will be interested in Jacoby Brissett, and the way Chad worded it this morning was they're going to be on the horn with him at noontime as soon as legal tampering opens. And unless I'm wrong, Jacoby Brissett's still a free agent. So they haven't made that move yet. They haven't tied it to that, or they haven't tied themselves to him yet. And Gardner Minshew, the other bridge quarterback, did go. And he signs a 2-year, $25 million contract with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Patriots, again, I keep talking about this quarterback plan that Mass Lab reported on. And, frankly, it's the plan that everyone thinks they should be doing anyways. You bring in a bridge guy, you bring in a veteran backup, and go get a quarterback at number 3. Are you signing Jacoby Brissett as your bridge quarterback at 2 years, $25 million?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's a certain cost of doing business and
$15 million guaranteed for Minshew.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And Jacoby Brissett, actually, even more so Jacoby Brissett. He's probably not as good a player. You're not going to win because of him the way for certain stretches you can win because of Minshew and Minshew mania.
I think Minshew's more volatile. Sometimes he's so good and sometimes he's awful, and Brissett's just kind of even keel, like, okay.
Right. And therefore, I'm not afraid to give him a 2-year deal with $15 million guarantee. Like, that's the cost of me having him in my quarterback room for the next 2 years to be a player, a mentor, a backup, a fill-in, a bridge. Like, we've talked about it. I think he's the perfect guy. He's the perfect guy in all facets of coming to New England for a situation that may not be ideal for him personally, may challenge him sort of mentally. Like, what am I? Why am I here? I'm better than that guy, but he's playing or what? Like, he may see Drake May struggle and be like, I'm better than him right now. But I think he's a professional and he'll sort of understand what's going on and he'll be able to handle it in a productive way. And I think that they will need that. Onwenu has an offer for $19 million.
I was just going to bring that up. I saw that, and it's Art Stapleton is a Giants beat reporter, works for USA Today, and he just tweeted 7 minutes ago, last check on Mike Onwenu, I've heard he has an offer that'll pay him $19 million per year right now, per source. Don't think Giants will go there, blah, blah, blah. So 19 mil per is apparently, according to Art Stapleton, the ceiling for Onwenu. Would you do that?
That could be the Patriots' offer. He may think he's worth more than that. That could be the Patriots' offer.
Yeah.
And he's saying, no, I want 20, 21, 22 million. And by the way, if I'm him, I wouldn't back down from it. I
agree.
The contract that Hunt got, I want a contract like that. I play tackle. I'm a right tackle for 2 of my 4 NFL seasons. I play right tackle. Tackles make more than guards. That guy just got $100 million.
And I don't care if you want me to play guard because the freaking Patriots wanted me to play guard and they had to move me to tackle and I was still getting paid like a guard or whatever with the rookie contract. But you get my point. Like I wasn't able to, get my value up as a tackle or a guard, whatever. You get the point. They moved me around a lot and, I was in no man's land.
And that's a lesson learned by Isaiah Wynn and Trent Brown previously in New England. Just because you signed to play a certain position at a certain value doesn't mean you'll be at that position,
Bingo.
right?
Right.
Trent Brown was signed to be a right tackle. They moved him to left. Isaiah Wynn was trying to be a left tackle because he was about to hit a contract year. They moved him to right. Teams can jerk you around. Now is the only time Mike Onwenu decides what the hell's going on in his professional life. So he should be the one to decide it.
Yep, I agree. So one more piece of, I guess, Patriots news that we can hit on before we wrap up and give our final thoughts before heading into tomorrow is Mack Wilson Sr. Essentially turns down coming back to the Patriots and signs a 3-year deal worth up to $15 million with the Arizona Cardinals. Mack Wilson came on hot at the end of the last season. They sort of changed the way they used him on defense, used him a little bit more as a pass rusher. He ends up notching 3.5 sacks in the second half of the season. Goes and gets paid there. He was a guy who was really vocal about Gerard Mayo being hired. So I was kind of surprised they didn't get that done with Mack Wilson. But nevertheless, Mark Daniels reported that they got close and it was competitive, and then he ultimately went to Arizona. So is it a major loss? Does that make you think that they need to go after a guy like Anthony Jennings even more? What do you make of Mack Wilson leaving and where they go from here at that position on defense?
I don't think it's a huge deal. He was fine. Now, I also think it's important to remember that your head coach is running your defense, is your linebackers coach. So if you can't trust him to make a good decision on Mack Wilson, then we probably can't trust him to make any good decisions moving forward. He should know that decision, that value, that player as well as anyone. I thought one of those stupid things, I don't know if we talked about it, when they moved him to a single digit, I thought he looked more athletic and more energetic on the football field. He's fine. He's a fine player. Like, do they need him? No. Would I have extended myself for him? No. Are you saving money? I mean, are we starting to go down the road that Elliot Wolf was right? Like, they're saving money. Like, they don't like the market necessarily. So they're not over investing, and maybe that, but I don't.
Well, that's the hard part is like, you always look, and I think it was Breer or Phil tweeted something yesterday along the lines of like the top 10 players that got paid 3 years ago, like 8 of them aren't even with the team that paid them, all this cash. And like, there's always the thing with the team that wins free agency, like more often than not misses the playoffs the next season. And like, it is a crapshoot and you sell out all this cash. And so there is a way to look at it where, why are we going to spend all this money right now and miss on 5 or 6 guys and then screw ourselves down the line in the future? And so, look, I'm a proponent of them spending as much money as they can right now smartly. But I also don't think they should go out and just spend just because they want to spend, just because they have to spend. Like, it needs to be calculated. It needs to fit in. But I also don't think they should be lowballing guys either. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, free agency is not how to do business. Robert said it a few years ago, like, just in any sport, if you're beholden to free agency, it means you don't have good talent, you haven't drafted and developed, you haven't Packer weighed it successfully. Like, if they are really going down the Packer way model, the only thing I would say, and this gets back to the Giardi thing, how good are these guys? If you have cap
space, sorry to cut you off, but if you have cap space, that means you have bad players on your roster.
The reason they have cap space is because they didn't have players to re-sign.
Exactly.
If they had players to re-sign, if N'Keal Harry had been a good pick, he'd be making $20+ million a year right now on the Patriots salary cap. If Mac Jones was a real pick, he'd be making a boatload of money on the salary cap right now. And there are too many of those guys who you didn't have to re-sign. The funny thing is, now that Bill is gone, you actually have a little run here between Duggar and Onwenu and these guys, and then looking ahead to Barmore and Stevenson, you have 4 potential blue chip players right there. Now, Duggar, they didn't want to sign at his value. Onwenu, they didn't apparently want to sign, at least not pre-free agency, at his value. We'll see where it goes with Stevenson. They didn't sign a replacement, right? They just signed a complimentary guy, because I was kind of thinking you could sign Saquon Barkley for 3 or 4 years right now, and that's insurance against Stevenson. If he wants money, well, I got Saquon. Good luck on the open market. You didn't do that. So maybe they are just going to re-sign Duggar when he finds out what the market is. And you got fortunate because there's 8 million safeties out there. And so maybe the value won't be there. Maybe Onwenu is finding, nope, it's not 22 million. it's high teens, like we told you all along. We want you at high teens. Like, maybe they're going to win this game. Maybe Elliott Wolf is going to be like Vince McMahon strutting around the ring.
Yeah.
Like, I knew what I was doing. I run this show. I'm the big swing and you know what in this world. And I know I should probably stop with those references since he's very much involved in some hideous issues right now in the WWE.
Oh,
but
yeah. You were talking about Wolf. I was like, what did he do?
No. But
yeah,
Elliott,
yeah.
like maybe Elliott Wolf is playing this really nicely. Maybe he gets Duggar back at his price. Maybe he gets Onwenu back at his price. And then maybe he finds value, a couple more spots. And then now you're building and you're drafting and you're doing what he says he wants to do. But this is not, I think people had 2021 in their mind that today was going to be, holy crap, they signed Ridley. Holy crap, they signed Saquon. Holy crap, they signed Tyron Smith within like boom, boom, boom. Like,
yeah, right.
And that's not what we're getting. That doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean it won't work. That doesn't mean it can't have success.
Well, and so again with that, like I also remember that day in 2021, they made all the moves at noontime. And then by like this time that night, they went and signed Aguilar and they signed Kendrick Bourne at like 7:32. So like, again, we're reacting because, this is what we do for a living and what we have to do. We got to react to what happened, but there's still so much more to come. And that's why, like, there's two ways to skin the cat here. One hand, hold your horses, but on the other hand, like, why the bleep haven't they done anything? So again, there's two ways to look at it, but it's 7:00 in the legal tampering period. We're 7 hours into this thing. Let's let them work a little bit before we make a judgment.
And they are, I mean, can we even argue they're not a better football team?
No,
they have a backup.
They haven't done anything to him. Yeah, right. No, they have a backup running back. They cut, I guess, addition by subtraction, but then they lose Mac Wilson too. Right. I'm with you, but there's moves to be made. The quarterback was such a big deal last year with, the poor play from Mac in that position in general. So like, it's so early. There's things to come, but they still, again, they have to make moves. Like I said to start the show, if we log off of here, Andy, and Jacoby Brissett and Calvin Ridley are both signed elsewhere, then it's time to panic a little bit because then you don't really hit on any moves in free agency. You don't have your bridge quarterback. You don't have your number one wide receiver. Your number one wide receiver is going to have to be a rookie, or you trade for T. Higgins and you make it up that way. But then you're chasing, and that's when it starts to get ugly in the NFL, is when you're chasing guys like that. So that's kind of where we're at. And so that's it as far as day one. Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap this sucker up and probably be back tomorrow? I know you're going to be on Keith, but
so let me just ask you, because you're my barometer of sort of the upbeat, optimistic, tries to see the positive but passionate fan. Because I don't think you're a bury your head in the sand type. You do
Mike
trend
Onwenu. The Patriots are re-signing Mike Onwenu. Breaking news.
Nice. What do we got?
Ian Rappaport. The Patriots are re-signing versatile offensive lineman Mike Onwenu, one of their cornerstone players, to a 3-year, $57 million deal, including $38 million guaranteed. He gets a $22.5 million signing bonus.
Told you it'd be $22.5 million.
Yeah. So let's react.
I like it. I like that. That's a good deal because it's not over $20 million a year. So what is that? $19 million a year. That's the $19 million deal that was reported out of New York. He didn't get the contract that he necessarily wanted. I think he probably wanted closer to a 5-year, $100 million contract. Apparently he didn't find it out there for whatever reason. But now you have a little bit even more of the Mike Giardi. Oh, great. We're keeping the same team together. So we can win 3 or 4 games next year, which I don't necessarily. I never thought I'd see people get this excited over Mike Onwenu re-signing.
Yeah, but I think it's massive. Like, I really think that's a massive, massive move. Like, it's huge. And you talk about this offensive line and, where this team has been the last couple of years. And the quarterback has always been a huge part of it. But another huge part of it has been that offensive line. Like, some turnstiles and Onwenu being inside and then outside and moving back and moving forward. And it's just to lock this guy down, who has been he's been nothing but really, the consummate ultimate Patriot pro. And I think he deserves the money, and I think he deserves it here. I think he wanted to be back. And again, it's, you talked about it with, Giardi, and I'm sure Jones is going to say the same thing. You're bringing, you're running it back with these same guys, and these guys went 4-13 last year, but you need to be able to, pick through the litter and figure out what worked for you and what didn't. And I 100% think Mike Onwenu was a guy that worked for them. So I love it. He's consistent. Reading the chat too. Elite when healthy. Mahomes and Burrow, if they like their O-line, hell yeah, they do. Again, this is a very, very, call it high quality move that I don't think the Bill Belichick regime would have made. I don't.
Probably not, because if the Bill Belichick regime wanted to do it, they probably could have done it cheaper a year ago rather than waiting for him to hit now. You probably could have got it for closer to $16 or $15 million a year. I do need to pick nits with, I guess it's just Patriot. O-line is greater than quarterback. That's why everyone is excited. That's the dumbest thing I've heard. The most important need for the Patriots this offseason is quarterback. It is still quarterback. It will be quarterback until that need is filled. There are no questions. And Joe Burrow and Mahomes, you know what they did when their line sucked? They lost in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
the effing Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They went to the effing Super Bowl with crap-ass offensive lines. The quarterback is the most important position in all of sports. It isn't even close.
Yeah, so
I'm done.
No,
So does this change your attitude?
Patriots. Yeah.
Does this change your attitude, though?
It does.
Okay. So they're going to win the division?
No, they're not going to win the division. But they're building from within. They have Onwenu here for 3 years. I think it's you do this and you still have to build. You still got to go get more. You still got to go get Calvin Ridley. You still got to go get your bridge quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. But you talk about bringing in the 3rd overall pick, you now have a guy to protect him. If it's Michael Penix, you have a guy to protect his blind side. Obviously, that's a joke, but it's a front side tackle for your quarterback. He's going to be good in the run game. He's going to be good in the pass game. He's going to be, I think he should and will play right tackle. And it gives you insurance for your rookie quarterback. And I think that's massive, because if you bring a quarterback in like you did with Mac and you don't set him up with the offensive line around him, he's just going to turtle and crater just like Mac did. But they're not going to do that because they have Mike Onwenu back.
So my biggest takeaway so far is everything they have done has been good value. Even this, I think, is good value. You didn't grossly overpay for Mike Onwenu. I think you got Hunter Henry on a discount. I think you got a very run-of-the-mill running back contract for Gibson. I thought you got a very middle-of-the-road receiver contract for Bourne. They have, Bill Belichick preached value, and that was sort of tied to him. I think Elliott Wolf's first 7 or 8 hours making the decisions and spending the money, he's gotten good value out of what he's done. He hasn't wasted. Now, maybe that's what he was trying to say at the combine when he said save money, and he pushed back against Gerard's burn some cash, because burn some cash is like wasting money. Like you're doing this, just flipping them off fast and furious.
It's I'm trying to think if there's been a move today that's why are you giving X person that much money? There are some of those in the NBA where remember Dylan Brooks got 4 years, 100-something million. It was that guy is a bench player. There are occasionally NFL moves where it's you're just burning cash because you completely have it, where this is obviously the moves they've made have not been those at all.
No, so that's to like. I will say though, my feeling is the same. You're not a better football team yet. You haven't done anything to get better. The status at best is quo. You've kept some of your good players. As you said, you maybe shaved off a piece or two that weren't really needed or wanted, addition by subtraction. But you can't really argue you're a better football team. You haven't really advanced much of any, because who did we rave about last year? The backup running back. We even really liked the backup running back, and you added another backup running back that's different, and I think we like him. So the end of day one, as we come down, I would say, okay, nice little start. You're not.
This was a good rebound, Andy. This was a good rebound to end day one.
They needed this to save face. Now, it is funny that, again, people are excited at a tweener guard / tackle who was part of one of the worst offensive lines this team has ever seen.
And it's funny too, like I look at it and, I'm looking at Twitter and scrolling right now as we do this. And like, I see a lot of like, F yes. And the Patriots are killing free agency. And like, and it's like the three big moves they've made are three players in Bourne, Henry, and Onwenu that were objectively, they were a part of a 4-13 team. Now, were they the best players on that team? Absolutely. But it's still, a lot more needs to be done. Like a lot more needs to be done, but they are on a good start as far as retaining the guys they had. And, you can put Kyle Duggar in that mix as well.
And only one of them is in like the prime of his career free agency. That's Onwenu. I mean, Bourne is coming off a torn ACL, who's hitting free agency again after hitting it from the 49ers. And Henry is probably, what did Brady like to say, closer to the end than the beginning of his career. Sure. So, yeah, and I agree with Patriot. Still need a left tackle. Who's the left tackle going to be? And are you going to draft and start the 34th pick? I think we all want the 34th pick to either be a receiver or a tackle. Either way, I think you're being a little greedy if you say the 34th pick is either going to be our no questions asked starting left tackle or no questions asked number one wide receiver, right? You're asking a lot out of that 34th pick in the draft.
You know what else I'll say too about this move is like there was a feeling, and I guess not a feeling really, you could see it. Like this team wasn't really bought in towards the end of the season. They floundered out. They went 4-13 and they had to fire the head coach. And clearly Belichick, wasn't getting through to some guys. But to have guys like Onwenu, guys like Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne want to come back and rebuild this thing and be around this team, it does say a little bit about Gerard Mayo and what they think about the guy and what they think about, the Patriots and playing football here in general. Like, is it going to be the 20-year run that they have? Absolutely not. Like, you can't get that far over your skis just yet. But I think it's a positive to see these type of players wanting to return instead of, again, these are three guys who aren't, on the young side. You mentioned it with Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne with the ACL. Like, they're returning to be a part of a rebuild, but they're not returning to be a part of a rebuild for the next 10 years. They're returning to be a part of a rebuild for the next 3 or 4 years. And so if they have confidence in, this thing being able to turn around a little bit, then that gives me some confidence on the outside that these guys think they want to go back to that team on the inside.
Astro Vulture says a Corafor is pretty good. Okay. I'll listen to that idea. Where's he playing? Because he's been a right tackle. Now, is there a chance we're putting Onwenu back to guard, that Mayo agrees with Belichick and thinks best case scenario he's actually a guard? So you have a right side where a Corafor is your starting right tackle and Onwenu is your guard. I don't know. I'll leave that open. I just don't think either of them is O-line is improved. How is it improved?
It's not. In fact, it's technically worse because Trent Brown's not back.
you right. Now, you could argue addition by subtraction there, although in the middle of the season, Trent Brown was telling us he was the best player on the offense, not just offensive line, the best player on the offense. So you can't Wayne C. Ram. I don't think you can argue that the O-line is improved. You kept what I believe is one of your best offensive linemen, but he was part of the crappy line last year, and I agree with Gonzo Duke. Left tackle is a major question mark right now.
Yep. So it
is March 11th, Wayne. Wayne, I agree with you. This is where Bill Belichick would come to the podium and say, I actually checked. I called the league. As luck would have it, we don't actually play a football game until September, so our depth chart doesn't matter right now.
All right, so then how do they turn this from a solid start to a great one over the next 2 days, Andy Hart? 3 additions before we get out of here. Not 3 additions, but what do they have to do to change your mind?
I think they need to add an impact offensive player. And I think that's either like Tyron Smith would count for me, even though his health scares the hell out of me. By the way, I knew he hadn't been healthy, but then when I actually looked at it, he's been less healthy than I thought he's been.
Yeah.
Playing less than half the games over the last 4 years total. And it's been like 4 years, 5 years since he played a full season. But I would consider that impact because then I would agree with Wayne. You've improved your line when he's on the field. I think you need to add an impact receiver, a guy that I feel is higher on the depth chart than Kendrick Bourne or Demario Douglas. And I don't, if you say that's Calvin Ridley, I'll bite my tongue and say, yes, Calvin Ridley's better. I wish we hadn't paid him $25 million, whatever. If you say that's T. Higgins, but I think they need to, because I can't, again, I'll go back to it. I can't count on 34. I can't count on 2 draft picks being my number 1 receiver and my left tackle. That just sounds like going down that road of screwing with your rookie quarterback because he doesn't have a number 1 receiver and he's running for his life because the guy on the left side's learning on the fly. So that would be a way for me to save it, is you got to get an impact player at either tackle or receiver.
Yeah, I agree. You got to make that number 34 pick. You got to do one of the 2 that you want at 34. You either get your tackle at 34, you get your receiver at 2, and then vice versa in free agency. I agree. And I think it's got it. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to remind you and our listeners, we will actually be breaking down on the Six Rings podcast tomorrow, our prospect series. We will be moving on to tackle. And I've been getting ready for that, and I am getting more excited because there are some tackles that are well thought of that I don't think are actually as good as people are making them out to be. And there are tackles that are going to go later in the draft that I am borderline giddy about and would be very, very excited if they landed in New England at 34. So make sure you check out the Six Rings.
I was going to say, Andy, while we have, and talking about the sets of eyes, we're now over 10K individual eyes on this stream right now. We have 5,188 people watching. So while you're here, go subscribe to the Six Rings podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, on the Odyssey app, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Go do it. Six Rings and Football Things. Go subscribe because we're going to be doing this every single day coming down the pipe for free agency. We're going to have prospect pods. We're going to have breakdowns. Going to have one-off Wednesdays, which if you haven't seen that, it's me and Andy's Wednesday show in the afternoon. So subscribe, rate, review, do whatever you got to do. Follow us on Twitter at Six Rings Pod, at Jumbo Hart, and at Mike Kadlick. And we're going to continue to, kick this thing in the behind just like the Patriots are in free agency. So again, go, if you don't already, follow us on Twitter at Six Rings Pod and subscribe to the Six Rings Pod. So
can I share a text with you I just got?
Sure.
That made me laugh legitimately.
Sure. Yep.
Can we swear on here?
Yeah.
Fucking awesome. 4 and 13. Let's keep the band together. That was the response somebody sent me. I love Patriot fans.
Yeah. I mean, you need additions now. We talked about it. You set your baseline. You brought back the guys that were good on this team. Now you need to add to it, and then you start to cook. So,
yep.
And again,
in this line, I don't rule out Kyle Duggar realizing what's out there and coming back and adding his name to this list of re-signings, and that's fine. Good players, solid players, clubhouse players, everything you want to call them. Now get me a tackle and or a wide receiver. You get me Tyron Smith and Calvin Ridley. I'm on board, baby. Now we take Jaden Daniels 3. We take a tackle in the second round, and we're cooking with gas. Now we're burning. Now we're burning not cash. We're burning excitement. We're burning energy. We're burning hope.
Exactly. That's when we book our Super Bowl tickets, me and you. So
what's that now?
Exactly. So that's going to do it for us here on the Six Rings of Football Things podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. We're at, like I said, we're over 5,300 now. I don't know if this is a glitch or what, but again, go subscribe. Go get us the numbers. We'll go get it every single day. We're going to be back tomorrow. I know you're going to be on Rich Keefe. I'm going to try and get Fitzy out here tomorrow night to break down day 2. We're going to do it in day 3. And then depending on what happens, we're going to go Thursday, Friday too. So we're going to do these live shows on Six Rings throughout the free agency week to bring you all the updates around the Patriots and the NFL. So again, make sure to tune in and, keep it coming. So again, we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. He's at Jumbo Hart on Twitter, Andy Hart, and I am Mike Kadlick. And we will see you tomorrow here on a live Six Rings, continuing to break down the NFL free agency.